You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one on one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical, tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1332. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. We are hosting the Group Practice Conference in May. That's May 4th and 5th. 2026, right around the corner. You can get your tickets now over at practiceofthepractice.com/conference or over at grouppracticeconference.com. Both go to the same landing page. So the Group Practice Conference is going to be an amazing time where we have speakers that have 20-minute talks on the main stage, and then about a third of our time is breakout sessions for people to have deeper conversations. These aren't extra information sessions. These are conversations with people that you want to connect with. Because when I go to conferences, usually the part that I enjoy the most is hanging out with people like Dr. Elil, who I'm hanging out with today. I met him at the Mental Health Marketing Conference, and that would have been a couple years ago. Those are the things that I really enjoy, is hanging out with people, getting to know them, picking their brains, and we want to give you lots of time for that. So we have rented out an art museum that has 10 different rooms. We're going to have different conversations going on through there. And then the main stage has 20-minute keynote talks, and that's where Dr. Elil is going to be speaking. So I'm so excited today to have Dr. Elil Yuvarajan, who is a PsyD and is co-founder of Stepping Stone Therapy, a thriving 7-figure private practice based in Texas with more than 20 clinicians. He and his spouse, also a psychologist, founded the practice 9 years ago with a shared vision of creating a supportive, high-quality environment for both clients and clinicians. Dr. Elil studied business at Purdue, earning his PsyD in clinical psychology from Baylor University, and worked in human resources for over a decade before launching a private practice. Now he lives in Minnesota, where he leads the business virtually while raising 3 children and focusing on sustainable growth, leadership development, and clinician well-being. Dr. Elil, welcome to the Practice of Practice podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the show. It's always fun when I've got to know people personally and, that we've hung out and, to actually, now have you on the show and we're talking about this and having you talk at the conference. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. I know I enjoyed meeting you at the Mental Health Marketing Conference, and I feel like it's one of the best parts of these conferences, the people we meet and the ability to kind of engage with other people in our field.
Yeah. So Dr. Elil, so your talk is called When You're Ready to Burn It Down. When were you ready to burn it down?
I think a better question might be, which time
Okay.
were you most ready to burn it down?
Tell me all the times you wanted to burn it down.
Yes, so I think there, several different points as my wife and I started our practice, and I think there's several different times where, there was just this feeling of like, this isn't going the way that I wanted to. I wish I could just kind of, burn it down and start all over again. And now that I'm learning this lesson or I'm dealing with this issue, to be able to like fix it. So I think probably and I think part of the reason this came up for me as well is I think when you asked me for kind of like what areas I might be interested in talking about as well, this was one of those things that was happening for me at the time as well, in terms of like, oh man, I have such a headache over some of these things. What do I need to do to fix it? What do I need to do to change it in those things? So I'd say at that point in time, the biggest challenge for me had been around kind of the people side of it. And I think from that standpoint, it was the idea of like, okay, like, how do I get the right skill sets? How do I get the right resources to be able to do, kind of meet the goals to grow the business the way that I want to? And finding that like, okay, like we don't have the right skill sets, I just want to like just start over. Like, how do I get the right skill sets? How do I like, go back in time now that I understand what I need for this role and find the right people for this role? So I think that was one of the biggest examples that came up for me most recently.
Yeah, take us deeper into when you felt like burning it down, one of those times. Like, what did that look like? I mean, were you crying in your bed? Were you like having to go for walks all the time? Was it like you thought about I could just become a shoe salesman? Like, I mean, like what was like take us into the mind of Dr. Elil when it felt like I should just walk away from this, or I could walk away from this, or maybe it was just like a fleeting thought, but like take us really into your head.
Yeah, I'll give you a different example. And my, like I said, my wife and I co-founded the practice, and I appreciate and love her so much. One reason being that she just kind of keeps me honest and keeps me kind of self-aware in some ways where I might try to bury my head in the sand. So
Mm.
not so long ago, I remember we were just having a dinner, and she turned to me and she said, if we just close down the practice, you and I could just work, right? We could see 20 clients a week, and we would probably be making about as much money as we're making right now, and you
Mm.
wouldn't be nearly as stressed as you are right now. So I think
Mm.
those moments, sometimes, I'm beating my head against the wall, but sometimes it takes someone else to point out, like, hey, how are you doing? Because you don't seem like you're doing well, and you seem like you're really struggling. So what's going on? And I really appreciate that from working with my wife. That she keeps me really honest in those things as well. So looking at that, we started running the numbers, and I said, like, okay, like let's look at this. Like, if we did work 20 hours a week, let's run through this and just see what this looks like, right? And then we look at, okay, here's a practice, right? Why am I putting in more money, more energy, more time, and more money as well, and not getting the return that I want, right? So I think it's those moments in time where, as she points it out to me, and I say, okay, this, as I look at my finances, as I look at some of these things, I realize, okay, let's break it down. Let's look at the details of what we're doing, right? Where am I spending my time? Why am I so stressed out? Where is the money going right now? Tracking back to the root of those things, right? And seeing like, okay, what do we need to do to change these things? What do I need to do to shift this so that I can either make the money that I want to, I can decide that I want to change things and shift things around a little bit so that I'm not as stressed, or worst case scenario, I guess, which is I'm going to shut it all down and I'm going to just do my own thing. Which at the core of it, I feel like I would be a terrible shoe salesman, first of all. But I feel like, I love the field. I love the work that we do. So I feel like I'll always do something within this field because I really am passionate about it. I think it's always the question of like, will I continue to do it the way that I'm doing it now, or do I want to change it so that it looks different?
Mm. Now, so how do you make the case of running a seven-figure practice compared to just you and your wife doing therapy?
Yeah, I think the most basic level is to look at the financial level of it, right? Like, okay, how many hours am I putting into the practice? In terms of the administrative work, I'm not doing nearly as much direct work, people management, it's supervision, looking at the finances, marketing, operations work, those kinds of things. And how much money would I be getting paid if I kind of broke that up into an hourly rate? Right? As opposed to if we were running our practice and we simplified our systems, we simplified our processes, we didn't need a scheduler, we didn't need a claims person, we could just do things ourselves. What would be the financial cost and structure associated with those things? So I think that's the most basic level, because as much as we're passionate about our businesses and really want things to thrive and grow, I heard this somewhere where, like profit is the lifeblood of the practice, right? Without profitability, without being able to make money, we can't grow our practice. We can't serve clients in the way that we want to, and we can't hire and develop clinicians the way that we want to either.
Mm.
So I think that's one level, is just the profitability of it, and what does that look like, and what does that mean. I think the second piece is something that's a little more hope and goal oriented, which is like, how do I want to make an impact in the world, right? So if we have 20 clinicians and they are each seeing 20 clients, right? That's 400 clients that are being seen maybe on a weekly basis and being helped. That's more than the 40 my wife and I could see together. So I think that's the second level, is like, what kind of impact do I want to make? And is it worth it, even if I'm maybe not making as much money? Because it's not always just purely about the profitability
Yeah.
side of it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think the third piece of it is just around sanity and what keeps us sane and what keeps us feeling like we're doing something that we enjoy and feel passionate about. Right. And is it that I'm spending a lot of time doing administrative work that someone else could be doing? Is it that I'm doing all this work that I feel like only I can do because I'm the one who can do it best and I'm the one who knows the most? In which case, maybe I need to take a look at myself and see, okay, how do I need to bring other people in to support me and help me and get buy-in into this thing that I'm doing as well?
Mm. Yeah, I think that idea of like, would you want to do like 20 clinical sessions a week, like, and then do an extra 10 hours of marketing, of phones, of scheduling? Like, is that what you want? And I love that you're talking about impact and saying, yeah, even if we make the same amount of money, to be impacting this many people and also giving jobs to that many people. I mean, to have 20 clinicians that now can feed their families and do all of that. When you think about the money side of it, so one thing that we often teach, and I would love for you to adjust this for however you think through things, when we kind of break down the percentages, we typically say about 40% of your gross profits should be coming in and going to your staff through salary, through wages, through benefits. About 30% or so should go into your admin. So that would be if you're renting a place, everything it takes to run the practice. And then about 30% should go into your profit that you're taking home as the business owner. Now, a lot of people, especially as they scale, might be in the 15 to 20% because they're just much larger and they don't need that full 30. And they're like, hey, I'd rather give the staff more or give, whatever. How do you break down some of those numbers when you think through like those kind of three core areas of staff, operations, and profit?
I think I look at it in a very similar way. In fact, I think I heard a couple of podcasts where you'd been talking about that, and I knew our numbers, but I just kind of ran those percentages specifically by those areas just to see how it would look and how it worked. And I think for us, it tends to be a little bit more that goes towards the clinicians, right? And there's from a administrative standpoint, including operations and those kinds of things, it's about what you said, between 25 and 30%. And like you said, because of a larger practice, we do invest a lot into marketing. We do invest a lot into like our training programs, those kinds of things as well. That does tend to be closer to the 15 to 20% mark that we aim for. And honestly, like that's, I'm happy with that, right? That to me is like, I'm happy, I'm content with that. It doesn't need to be making as much money as possible at the expense of other people, because there's so many other ways to kind of develop and define success within that piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
I fully agree with the numbers that you have. I think those are great ways to look at it. And I think, and to your point, I think one of the times that again, was another point to ready to burn it down is when we've been overcompensating clinicians to some level, right? And we were closer to sort of 55% of the, gross revenue that was going towards clinicians. And at that point, that was one of those times where my wife had talked to me and said like, hey, like, we're putting all this money into developing them, into doing all these things. We're not really making the profit that goes with that piece of it. So I think
Mm.
sometimes it's looking at that and then talking to your clinicians about like, hey, we provide all these things, and we do all these things. So we want to, are these things important? And we're going to shift things a little bit in order to make it more effective and make it so that we're able to sustain this as a practice.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Imagine there's
if you don't
someone
mind
list.
me, Joe, can
Yeah,
I
jump
ask
in.
you a question? Sorry. I'm
Sure.
curious, and I know you mentioned this briefly as we're starting, but I'm curious if this resonates with you, or if there were times where you had that feeling of like, maybe it'd be better if I just closed this down and, just, and maybe shoe sales is your thing.
Honestly, January of 2019, I can put my finger on it. And that was because I knew that the lease on our office was up. So at that point, I owned mental wellness counseling, owned Practice of the Practice. I had left my full-time job at the community college in 2015. So I'd had a few years of doing just therapy and Practice of the Practice. And I remember I was down to probably 2 or 3 sessions a week that I was doing, and I was loving Practice the Practice, and just realized, okay, at the end of this lease in July, um, Like, what am I going to do? Do I want to sign another 5-year lease that's, $120,000 or more? Am I going to buy a building? Probably not. And so just that idea of just the investment in that into something that I felt like I wasn't into anymore. I
Yeah.
remember in January, Nicole Ball, one of my therapists, came to me and she said, "So what's the plan for July? I need to plan, that's 7 months away, but I need to know what's happening with mental wellness counseling." And I just was honest with her. I'm like, I don't know. I could see shutting it down. I could see, selling it. I could see doing all sorts of different things with this, being a passive owner. But I knew at that point that really running the practice actively was not something I cared to do. I just was enjoying practice of the practice so much, and just the freedom of podcasting and such. And then Nicole, came back about a week later and said, "I want to buy the practice. Like, let's talk through that." And so she ended up buying it in July of 2019. But I think there have been times, even with practice of the practice, where I've realized the things we're doing don't make sense anymore. And so, we have to reconfigure it. We have to rethink it. I have to find the curiosity in it. For the podcast, it was like last year we did a lot of interviews with people that were like, Antarctic explorers. And it was like, we're pulling that in. And that was interesting to me. We've done the psychedelic series. And so now it's like, okay, I've drifted pretty far from kind of practice type things. So I need to have people like you, and we need to put on conferences that are more aligned with practices to kind of find that curiosity again. But I think even this project of starting Great Lakes Online Counseling is coming from I don't want all of my income to be tied to sponsors that want to sponsor the podcast or people that want to buy consulting or the practice academy. I want to be able to diversify it. I have rentals. I want to build this side counseling practice to just kind of diversify so that if things do get disrupted, that I can have a plan in other areas.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you had the insight enough to kind of look at it honestly and openly like that. And I also love the transparency you showed in that, just communicating when someone asks, like, yeah, here's what I'm thinking and here's where I stand, rather than being, kind of that clinical mindset that some people have, where it's like, oh, I got to be the strong one. I got to show
Mm-hmm.
that I can take on anything and do anything. So I think that's such an amazing example of like doing it successfully and doing it well.
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's good to reflect on that, to think about my own times of blowing it up. Listen, I didn't take insurance in my counseling practice because I had no idea how to handle it. The process of accepting insurance outside of a group practice can be tough, but most people looking for mental health care want to use their benefits to pay for sessions. If you're like me and you feel a little scared about taking insurance, or you just want to make it easier on yourself, and you're interested in seeing clients through insurance, Alma can help. They make it easy to get credentialed with major insurance plans at enhanced reimbursement rates. They also handle all the paperwork, from eligibility checks to claim submission and guaranteed payment within 2 weeks. Plus, when you join Alma, you'll get access to time-saving tools for intake, scheduling, treatment plans, progress notes, and more in their included platform. It's going to make it so much easier for your team, so you can spend less time on administrative work and more time offering great care to your clients. Visit helloalma.com/Joe. That's helloalma.com/Joe to get started. I think that in life, and tell me if you resonate with this, there's also just things outside of business that impact you, that either slow you down. It could be health things, it could be sick parents, it could be things with your kids that help you realize, okay, the way the business was for that version of Joe, we can't have with this version of Joe. Has that happened with you, where your life also impacts, how much you want to burn it down?
Absolutely. I think that makes a huge impact on things for sure. I think one of the things, for example, was, having kids, and I know you have kids as well. So having kids like changes your perspective on things. And in fact, that's how my wife and I started the practice. She was 3 months pregnant and she was like, if we don't do it now, we both want to, like, we're not going to. So I was like, all right, if you really want to take this on,
Wow.
mid-pregnancy morning sickness and everything, how can I say no to that, right? So that was definitely one of those moments where we changed things. I'd say another one which is really important is I live in Minnesota, and the practice is in Texas, right? So I think a part of it was we over these last couple of years, we moved here 2 years ago. We didn't want to live in Texas anymore. We were both from the Midwest. Things were changing in Texas that just were not in line with kind of the things that we wanted. So we were like, let's move somewhere else, right? And for me, being able to be like, okay, like, how do we do this? Like, do we sell the practice? Right? Same questions. Do we, what do we do so we can have the lifestyle, we can raise our kids in the environment that we want to? So I think for us, the kids have been really such a strong driving factor for so many of these decisions we've made. And, being able to then hire an operations leader to then help manage things so that I can step away and move up here to Minneapolis and teach at St. Mary's where I teach in the PsyD program. Those are like amazing opportunities. I'm really glad to have asked the question and to have been able to be conscious about making the choice.
Yeah. Now, when you're managing a remote team, how do you keep cohesion, connection, that feeling when people aren't all in the same place?
Yeah, I think that can be a really challenging thing. One of the things is early on, I really wanted to try to like get back every couple of months just so, I can see everyone, meet everyone face to face, engage with them so that I could just keep a finger on the pulse of things, right? Which I also recognize that was my own kind of like need for control that was driving some of those things. I realized like, once we establish the culture and we have a leadership team where I meet with, the three of us meet and talk about like how are things going, how are people doing. I think part of that is being able to trust them and trust that they're going to build the culture and kind of emphasize the culture. And not everyone needs to see my face and needs to engage with me in order to feel heard or understood. So I think a part of it is having people who value those things as much as I do around communication, making sure clinicians are happy and that they feel valued. I think those things are really important. Every time I go back, which is probably 2, 3 times a year, I do, we do a happy hour. I catch up with everyone. They bring their significant others. We chat. We kind of enjoy each other's company. Some people I'm meeting for the very first time, which is also a really cool thing. So I think those are really the things that we do to maintain that aspect of things. We haven't gotten to the point of any sort of regular meetings, things like that, only because I think people have such, the people at our practice at least, they have kids, they have other things that they're doing, significant others. So trying to find a time when everyone can meet and it works for everyone to be on the same page doesn't work very well. So we kind of took, a clue from kind of work, and we do asynchronous learning, right, where I record videos and probably every month or two I send something out and say, hey, here are the new people who are starting, here are the things that are changing, here's what's going on, and that way we try to like make sure that we capture those things and give people an opportunity to respond. If there's anything on there that's a surprise they want to learn more about, engage in, then they have the chance to do it there.
I love that. And I think that idea of like not having meetings that could have been an email. Like so often when you have a meeting and it's like, oh my gosh, this could have been a 2-minute email read. Like, but to really say, okay, no, we're meeting together to connect with each other, and that's why we're gonna have some chit chat at the beginning, and to like say, what's the intention of all this,
Exactly. And also the other next level with it as well is sending an email when you could have had a conversation instead with the one or
right?
two people that are actually impacted, right? So rather than saying like, hey, make sure you get your notes done, whatever, we talk to, Jack and Jill and we say, oh, hey, you're a little behind on your notes, or hey, let's have a conversation, talk about what's preventing you from doing this. So that's one thing I learned from working in corporate America for so long is the idea of like, we don't need to send out a giant announcement when something is impacting one person, as opposed to just having a conversation, being open, dialogue to be able to say like, hey, here's what we're seeing. What do you think? What do we need to
Yeah.
do to like change these things?
Yeah, so smart. So if the metaphor is burn it down on one side, what's the opposite of that? I mean, is it rebuild? Is it less stress? Is it stepping back? Like, what would you say is the metaphor that's the opposite of burning it down?
Yeah, I think the opposite of burning it down in so many ways is around insight, right? Just the awareness of what's actually happening. Because I think burn it down is often about overwhelm and I can't do this anymore. This is killing me, but doesn't always have a point to like why it's happening, right? So it requires some level of insight and awareness to be able to understand like what is it I'm not getting from this? What is it that's not meeting my needs in some way or making me unhappy in some way? And I think the second piece of it is that willingness to redesign and rethink what you had originally planned in some way. I think rather than for you being like, okay, I'm a practice owner and that's my identity and this is the thing that I want to be, for you to be able to say like, I'm a practice owner, but I'm also a podcast host. I do these other things as well that I'm passionate about. What thing is most important for me to focus on and for me to like then be able to put my energy into at that time, right? So I think that requires some consideration, some willingness to change what I'm willing to do. I'll say the third piece is if you have an overarching idea of the values that are important to you, right? And that practice is just one piece of that, right? For me and my kids, my teaching, my family are such important parts of that the practice, when I want to burn it down, often it's because I'm narrowing it in on it as the core thing that's my identity. So when I broaden my identity and say, what role do I want this to play in my identity overall? How am I not irritable with my kids all the time? How do I not snap at my wife about things because I'm feeling frustrated? Then I think it gives me a step back to say like, okay, what do I need to turn this into so I am more relaxed with it, where I can be, a little bit more hands off or trust other people to do the things they need to do without feeling like I need to oversee everything. So I think those three things, if people are willing to kind of look at those things and kind of consider those things, I think it's a really useful thing to be able to do.
Well, I think it's such a good lesson just for life. Like the other morning, I remember I woke up, before the kids on the weekend, and there were dishes out. We had fun the night before. There were dishes out, and the house wasn't perfect, by any means. And I wanted to read a new book that I got that is just this great, just fiction writer that I enjoy. And I wanted to drink my tea and read it. And it was like inside of me, it was like, Joe, straighten up. Joe, get things looking nice before the kids are up. Like, and just saying like, no, like you don't always have to be productive. And so just that idea of when I want to burn it down with parenting, when I want to be like, this house is terrible, to just say, you're creating this, Joe. You're saying that you have to do the dishes. You have to be this like self-sacrificing parent who always does the hard work and doesn't give an example of relaxing, an example of chilling out in ways that aren't just being on a screen. Like that I'm making that decision to keep that pace going in the house. And if I'm bitter with that decision, yeah, there's things nobody told us, that adulting was going to be this hard. Like there's a lot to keep track of, especially with kids. But we also need to carve out those times for like the things that keep us enjoying life as well. And so I think it's just such a great metaphor for life as well. Dr. Elil, the last question I always ask is if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I think the biggest thing that I wish someone had shared with me as I was kind of going through this process is that it's okay not to be perfect, right? That you are not going to get everything right, every hire, every process, every choice you make. So give yourself the flexibility to rethink it. And I think as a part of that, it's choose your pain, right? I think part of perfection or part of our expectation with that as well is that everything is going to be good and I'm going to be completely happy when things are running smoothly, right? And as you know, that's more around stagnation and there's a discomfort and unhappiness that goes with that. But I think if we're wanting to grow, if we're wanting to be in line with our values and things are shifting and we're shifting and our ideas are shifting, we can choose our pain, right? What do I want my pain to be right now? Do I want it to be the pain of, 20 hours of seeing clients and 5 hours, 10 hours of marketing and doing all those things? Or do I want it to be the pain of how do I help this practice be the best that it can be? And which is the pain that I want to choose and focus on? Because there's not going to be a choice that's like, okay, you're completely comfortable and happy and there's no work for you to do and you can just drink Mai Tais on the beach.
Mm-hmm. And that probably wouldn't be fun after a little bit also.
Yes.
So great. Dr. Elil, if people want to follow you on social media, on your website, your counseling practice, where can we send them?
Yeah, I have a LinkedIn page, Elil Yuvarajan. They can also find me at our website, steppingstonetherapy.org, and they can email me at Elil, E-L-I-L, at steppingstonetherapy.org if they ever want to commiserate, get any input, talk through thoughts, things like that. I'm always available for that.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and can't wait to see you at the group practice conference in May.
I'm excited too. Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
It's great having guests like this on, especially ones that are going to be speaking in May here at the Group Practice Conference. This conference, we can seat around 300 people. I think about half the tickets at this point are already claimed. So you're definitely going to want to grab your spot before they go. So it's going to be a TEDx style where it's 20 minutes on stage, and then you're going to have extra time where Dr. Elil will be hanging out there at the conference. So if you want to hear more about that, if you want to dig in with the speakers that are around, that's why we've rented out the whole art museum. We've partnered with Northern Michigan's United Way, also with the Community College Student Life Department, as well as all of our sponsors like Headway. It's going to be an amazing conference that you're not going to want to miss, whether you are a group practice owner already or you're headed in that direction at some point in the future. We've got some amazing speakers that are 7-figure practice owners. We've got folks talking about the attorney side. We're talking about selling a practice, the credentialing side, all the aspects of what it takes to run a group practice. So you're not going to want to miss that. That's over at grouppracticeconference.com. Also, if you missed it at the beginning, we do have some new amazing consultants with our team. So we have Adam Lewis Walker, who he is a TEDx speaking coach. So if you're looking at doing a TEDx, join us and having him consult with you. We've also got Doug and Brianna just joined the practice. On one end, Brianna, she went from nothing to 4 clinicians in 13 months. And so if you're in that very beginning stages, Brianna's the person for you. If you're on the other side, Doug has 120 clinicians in his practice. So if you're looking at a super mega practice and getting to that level, you're going to want to hire Doug as one of your consultants. So you can read more about them over at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Thank you so much to Alma for being our sponsor today. I wish Alma had been around when I had my private practice. I had no idea what I was doing. That's why I didn't take insurance. But if Alma had been there, I would have. And there's no reason that as a clinician, you should be spending hours on paperwork to bill for insurance, or not knowing for sure that you'll get reimbursed for sessions with your clients. If you're interested in seeing clients through insurance, but don't want to navigate the process and paperwork on your own, Alma can help. They make it easy to get credentialed with major insurance plans at enhanced reimbursement rates and a guaranteed payment within 2 weeks. Visit helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe to get started. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.